Ladies and gentlemen, today we are embarking upon a series of recorded sessions. We're going to call them Team Tales. Both of us are professional team coaches, among other things in the learning business. We both are licensed coaches with UpAGear, and we also have our independent learning supplier companies. But it's the team coaching piece that we'd like to focus on in these Team Tales sessions. We're talking today to Howard O'Donnell, a good friend of mine who lives in France, Englishman, lives in France, speaks fluent French, entrepreneur, and probably one of the most gifted and creative people I've ever met in our industry, and in particular around the team coaching world. So the basis of these team tales that we're going to try and share with you in this series is to share with you some unusual and hopefully amusing moments that we've experienced over the years. And Howard was telling me about one particular team he was working with, which we thought would make a good start at this very first session. So can you tell us a little bit more about who it was you were working with and what the whole, the backdrop was?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for being on the show. It feels like your own little radio show, Jerry. So yeah, thanks to be on. And this particular tale, I won't mention who the client is. I can't mention who the client is, but it was a team that I was invited to work for and design a sort of bespoke solution. So I designed a 2-year program, Jerry, for this particular team. There's 24 in the team in total, large team. And they'd done a few regular offsites, the kind of things we all know about, and it wasn't working. They weren't getting the results. There was plenty of conflict and some deeper issues to get brought to the surface. So I did a whole lot of interviews and diagnostics and built the trust and shaped the framework of the first workshop, one of 3 workshops over that period, Jerry. And I never forget it. You asked me to think of, Jerry, the other day of like one story that jumps out, and this is the first one I thought about when my head hit the pillow. So in a nutshell, we'd gone off site, we'd gone to a place on a hill in the middle of nowhere in a forest to a kind of what we would call in English a sort of glamping experience, right? So a luxury tree houses, right? And we basically just put our luggage in and we went to this thing called the Orangery, a lovely building surrounded by trees. And I just kicked off the first thing. The manager had spoken and I was just getting him to do the first piece of work and everything was going lovely. And it was a September day. It was very hot and it was windy. And everyone was out doing their thing. And I thought, oh, great. I'll have a cup of coffee. Everyone's busy. And about 30 seconds in, people started shouting and screaming, Howard, fire, 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 there's a fire going on, And I was like, what's happening, And suddenly there was smoke billowing and ash landing on us. So I got everyone together, left everything, and we assembled by the kind of chateau area where all the wooden, tree houses were, Jerry. And we thought we'd better get out of here. And as we looked around, we saw those Canadair, those French planes that drop water, in the forest you see on the news. They were flying overhead. There was the army, fire brigade. It was a complete nightmare situation, Armageddon situation. Now, some of the team were joking with me, Jerry, because I said just before that we were going on a journey. And it was really feeling like a kind of Armageddon, Bruce Willis kind of inferno journey at this stage. So we decided to just get out of the place and let the fire crews do their job. And we found ourselves pretty much homeless, without our computers, our gadgets, our pens, left our luggage, everything behind. And we found ourselves in a car park at the end of this long road to the chateau. Didn't know what to do. I mean, people were saying, should we go back to the office half an hour away? Oh, no, we can't do that. I've got my luggage. What do we do? So I decided to find somewhere to just land and just, recover for a moment, let the team find themselves. And the team needed this to be a success, Jerry. There's a lot at stake for this team. The only place we could find to shelter really in and sort of gather our thoughts was like a McDonald's type place. It was like a French version of that, with plastic slides and kids eating burgers and slurping on milkshakes. So we kind of like commandeered the top floor, which had the slide, you know, and all the coloring pens. And these guys were in their 50s and 40s, most of them, Jerry, you know, senior execs. And we found ourselves in the most ridiculous environment. Again, thinking, what do we do? Are we going to run home? Are we going to throw in the towel? This is a disaster situation. Or are we going to stay and we're going to make the best of it?
And what did they do?
Well, that's a good question. What did they do? There was a few people thinking, I can't be working in here on confidential information whilst people are nibbling on burgers. But we stayed and we stayed and we stayed for 3 hours. And I was so impressed, Jerry, that people started getting back into the groups they were in before the fire. And as I was trying to deal with what to do next with the owners of the chateau, people just got back on with the work. Albeit they had their legs around their ears because they were sitting on kids' chairs, you know, it was quite funny. We just got on with it. And this went on until about 7 PM, until we got almost kicked out of this fast food place. And the owner of the chateau then put us up in the town hall, you know, where people get married.
Yeah.
So I finished the thing off, you know, with the bust of Marianne, you know, where you get married in France, you know, as if I was conducting a wedding, running the rest of the workshop till about 10 o'clock at night. We finally got allowed in to this place, surrounded by firemen that we were promised would spend the night watering down the rooms we were sleeping in, of which, of course, all the ladies in the team were extremely happy about having firemen standing by. Yeah, well, you know, there we go. It's great. So, and that was that story, you know.
And what was the impact on the team of that situation? Did it impede the way in which they were learning and coming together as a team, or did it have a positive impact? What was the impact?
It definitely had a positive impact, Jerry. You know, and I bumped into someone recently that was part of that team, and they said to me, it was a game changer. You were either at that event or you weren't at that event. It was like a line in the sand where the team weren't able to get beyond that line in the sand before. And they came together and worked really hard and then shared the fear and the emotions of what was going on. I think it's that thing of a shared experience, Jerry. You know, when you've really been there in a team with someone in something that you know, way out of your comfort zone, it solidifies that sense of team. And how we pulled together. I stood back at times and pinched myself and looked at how they were caring for each other and pulling together. And like I say, throwing the towel in was not an option for them. Running back to and blaming a fire would have been an easy excuse, right? Mm. It was a disaster situation, but there's just no way it was going to happen.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Great response. And you were telling me about something to do with how they responded and how they got together with the owners of the chateau. What did they do for them?
Yeah, again, that was a great display of caring, you know, which is one of the key things the team wanted to work on for themselves in the first place. So this kind of like provoked the opportunity for them to show the best version of themselves, Jerry. I think that's the way I would capture the whole lesson for me. We got back to this chateau finally, and you know what, Jerry? We'd actually prayed for a barbecue that evening at the chateau, which of course was off the menu completely. So not only did we have to not get what we paid for and let go of that and work with them, we actually cooked for the owners because they were exhausted. They'd been working with the firemen and had obviously a frightening day. So when we finally arrived back, we were the only guests on site, and we made them drinks. We made them mojitos, I remember clearly, and we mucked in, we cleaned, we went off and we made salads with them. We shared a meal with them. And for me, it was a very proud moment when I saw the manager that was a little bit distant perhaps with his team just before. It was like a gang. It was really like a band of brothers and sisters.
Very good.
Yeah,
that's impressive. You know, they went that far. And you were saying to me that they thought the fire was part of your plan.
Well, you know, I'm a bit like you, Jerry. I pitched it at the beginning. I said, this is a 2-year journey. We're going on a journey. I must have said it 3 or 4 times. And like I say, within an hour, these things flying over, dropping water, you know, and firemen rushing everywhere. And it certainly felt like a journey. And several people honestly thought I'd organized it and it was some kind of like simulation, some sort of teamwork challenge. They soon realized that it wasn't, I think, you know, but so yeah, I've got loads of stories like that, but that one just came out, you know, came across my mind.
Yeah, but we can't quite leave it there, you know, because I think the point you made at the beginning is interesting to me, and I'm sure interesting to other coaches as well, that the decision was made around, they'd done one-offs which are good and they can work, but I think they'd realized that they needed to take on this 2-year journey, as you were saying, an adventure. And so at subsequent events, did this particular experience have impact in terms of the pace with which they arrived at their high-performing team status?
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. It's a good question. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only was it like a milestone moment for the team that we continue to connect to and hold on to as a reference point of good behavior. During that first workshop, there's a lot of work that was done around key values and behaviors, and they really made absolute sense. Like I've never seen a workshop make sense before, because we could really touch those words on the page, you know, the kind of words you normally have in a mantra or a poster from the HR department. These were things that we'd lived and breathed, and we took them back to the workplace. I sat in with this team and joined them and even surprised them on occasion when they presented the progress of their key result area back to me. And I would surprise them, and I'd pop in, have a coffee, and I'd put them, empower them to move that forwards. And it really worked. It really worked. We had a follow-up workshop 9 months later in a different chateau. It wasn't quite a chateau, but whatever. There was no fire. There was no drama, you'd be happy to say. Enough drama for one team. But it became a great anecdote. And I also saw people at other events telling the story I'm telling now about they were part of that. And that goes on a bit like it's contagious, right? This kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
The other thing in that story, as I'm reliving it again, Jerry, I hadn't thought about it for a while, was the tenacity and creativity, you know, I needed as a facilitator in there, because I think looking back, it could have dropped, the energy could have dropped, and we could have gone into a negative spiral all through that fast food moment that went on, and then being moved to a town hall where the lights didn't work. I mean, it could have died at any of those moments. But I'm a big believer, you know, you're a musician as well, Jerry, like me, and I'm a big believer in that expression. I think it's John Lee Hooker that says, the tone is in your fingers. You know, it's a blues man that can make a tune even if the strings are broken, right? And I often think that's our job as coaches, that, you know, even if we don't have all the tricks and our laptops and all the things we plan to do, if we're agile and we've got courage in the moment, we can have, you know, a meaningful, powerful intervention, which is what I had to pull out like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, to be honest. It was a long rabbit out of a hat session for me, but it worked. It worked.
It's a great story. And I guess as leaders of businesses, complex businesses, you're going to find bumps in the road and things you need to deal with along the way. We all have to deal with that, and we've all faced it in our careers. You know, there was just a perfect metaphor of an example which, you know, came into the learning experience. How I think it's funny that they thought you'd done it deliberately.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. You know,
I never get nervous anymore, Jerry, either. Whenever I'm facing whatever situation, I think, well, that was pretty tough, and having to keep things alive with no resources but your mouth and your creativity and what you can find around you, bits of paper in a room or something. How can you facilitate with what is available, you know? And I think it's never going to be that tough again. You know?
No. Hey, careful. You never know.
Yeah. Bring it on.
Yeah. So listen, thanks very much for sharing that one with us. I'm sure people will enjoy listening to it. It's amusing, terrifying, and enlightening all at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me share it.
My name's Jerry Brown, and that was the first Team Tales session with Howard O'Donnell. We look forward to doing some more with you in the future, and thank you very much for listening.